I can't close my legs. 6 words that stopped 12 hardened bikers mid-conversation. Little Maisie stood in the doorway of Big Iron MC, trembling, her Sunday dress torn. Bull, the club's president, had seen violence, dealt it, survived it, but nothing prepared him for what this child was about to reveal. Her stepfather was the town's beloved deputy sheriff. Her mother refused to believe her. And Maisie? She'd walked 2 miles alone to find the scary men everyone warned her about. Because sometimes, the monsters wear uniforms, and angels wear leather. What these bikers did next would challenge everything Millbrook believed about justice, family, and who the real protectors are. Real quick, drop your location in the comments. Let's see where this story reaches today. Now, back to that Saturday afternoon when Maisie walked into Big Iron's garage. Millbrook, Oklahoma. Population 8,400. The kind of town where everybody knows your name, your business, and your grandfather's mistakes. Main Street still has a hardware store that's been run by the same family since 1952. The local diner serves coffee in chipped mugs that have witnessed 40 years of gossip. On Sunday mornings, church bells compete for attention across 4 denominations. It's the kind of place people call home with genuine affection, where folks still leave their doors unlocked and wave at strangers. But like most small towns, Millbrook has secrets. And on this particular Saturday afternoon in June, one of those secrets was about to walk through an open garage door and shatter everything. The Big Iron Motorcycle Club's clubhouse sat on the eastern edge of town, just past where the sidewalks give up and the road turns to gravel. It wasn't much to look at. A converted warehouse with rust-stained metal siding and a hand-painted sign that had faded to something between maroon and brown. But it was theirs. Inside that garage, 6 motorcycles in various states of repair sat like sleeping beasts, chrome catching the afternoon light that poured through the bay doors. The air hung thick with heat and the smell of motor oil, mixed with the distant sweetness of cut grass from somewhere down the road. These weren't the motorcycle clubs you see in movies. No matching leather vests with elaborate patches, no criminal empire, no violent initiations. Big Iron was something simpler and maybe more honest. They were mechanics, factory workers, a couple of veterans who'd come home from wars nobody wanted to talk about anymore. They were men who'd been divorced, fired, broken, rebuilt. Men who'd made peace with being outsiders in a town that valued conformity. They worked on their bikes, drank beer that was too warm, and mostly kept to themselves. They weren't angels. They'd never claimed to be. But they weren't devils either, despite what the church ladies whispered over their bridge games. Bull stood with his back to the open garage door, forearms deep in the engine of a 1987 Harley Sportster that had more problems than solutions. At 48, he carried himself like a man who'd learned when to fight and when to walk away. His Marine Corps tattoo had faded to blue-gray on his left shoulder. His hands bore the scars of 1,000 repairs and a few ill-advised bar fights from his younger days. He'd been president of Big Iron for 11 years, not because he wanted the title, but because someone had to keep this ragtag group from falling apart. The wrench slipped. Bull cursed quietly, wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his wrist, and that's when he noticed her. A small figure in the bright doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun, so she was mostly silhouette. For a moment, he thought maybe his eyes were playing tricks. The heat, the glare, too many hours squinting at engine parts. But then she took a step forward, and the shadow became a child. 6 years old, maybe 7. Blonde hair pulled back in braids that had clearly started the day neat, but were now coming undone, wisps sticking to her sweaty forehead. She wore a pink dress with small flowers on it, the kind little girls wear to Sunday school, except this one had dirt smudges across the front and a small tear near the hem. In her left hand, she clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days, one ear half detached, fur matted and gray in places. Her feet were bare. That's what Bull noticed next. No shoes, no socks. Just small, dirty feet on the oil-stained concrete floor. Behind Bull, conversation died. Hammer lowered his beer bottle slowly. Preacher pushed back from the workbench where he'd been sorting bolts. Ghost looked up from his phone, his usual expression of mild boredom replaced with something sharper. For grown men suddenly aware that something was very wrong with this picture. The little girl stood there, swaying slightly, like she wasn't entirely sure her legs would hold her. Her eyes were huge in her small face, scanning the garage, taking in the motorcycles, the tools, the men who were now all staring at her. She was looking for something, or someone. Her chin trembled once, then steadied, like she'd made some internal decision to be brave. Bull set down his wrench carefully and wiped his hands on a rag, his mind already racing through possibilities. Lost kid? Probably. Hurt? Maybe. But there was something else in her eyes that he recognized from his own childhood, from mirrors in foster homes and school counselors' offices. Fear. Not the kind that comes from being lost or scraped knees. The kind that lives deeper, in bones and blood. He took one step toward her, then crouched down so he wouldn't tower over her. None of them knew it yet, but this child's next sentence would change everything they thought they knew about their town. "Hey there," Bull said, his voice rough but gentle. "You okay, little one? If you believe children deserve protection no matter what, stay with this story, because what these so-called outlaws did will restore your faith in humanity. The system failed, but these men wouldn't." The little girl's lips moved, but no sound came out at first. She tried again, her voice barely a whisper, so quiet that Bull had to lean forward to hear her. 3 words that made his blood turn cold. "I can't close my legs." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The hum of the oscillating fan in the corner. The distant sound of traffic on Route 47. The birds in the elm tree outside. Everything faded into a terrible, heavy silence. Bull stayed crouched, perfectly still, while his mind raced to process what he'd just heard. Behind him, he heard Hammer's sharp intake of breath. The creak of Preacher's boots as he moved closer. Ghost's phone hitting the workbench with a clatter. Without a word, without any signal passing between them, the 3 men formed a half-circle around the girl, not crowding her, but creating a wall between her and the open garage door. It was instinct. The same instinct that made wolves circle their young, that made soldiers cover their brothers. Protection. Bull forced his voice to stay calm, steady. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Maisie." She clutched the rabbit tighter. "Maisie Morrison." "Maisie, that's a real pretty name." "I'm Bull. Can you tell me what hurts?" She looked down at her bare feet, then back up at him. Her eyes were the lightest blue, like winter sky, and they held something no 6-year-old's eyes should ever hold. Knowledge. The kind that steals childhood and leaves something broken in its place. "Everything hurts," she whispered. "Down there. And my legs. And my tummy. It hurts to sit. It hurts to walk. Mama says I'm being dramatic, but I'm not. I'm not dramatic." Bull's jaw tightened. He'd been in combat. He'd seen things that gave him nightmares for years afterward. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of this small child, trembling in her torn Sunday dress, trying to explain pain she shouldn't even have words for. "Can I see where it hurts, Maisie? Just so I know how to help you." His voice was gentle, but inside, rage was building like a storm. She nodded slowly and shifted her weight. That's when Bull saw what he'd been dreading. Bruises. Dark purple and yellow marks on the inside of her thighs, fingerprint-shaped, unmistakable. More bruising around her knees, on her upper arms. Defensive wounds, the kind that come from trying to push someone away. Her dress had hidden most of it, but now, in the harsh fluorescent light of the garage, it was impossible to miss. This wasn't a fall from a bike or roughhousing with other kids. This was deliberate. This was systematic. This was evil. Behind him, Hammer turned away, his shoulders rigid. Preacher's hands had curled into fists. Ghost was already pulling out his phone again, fingers moving with purpose. Bull swallowed hard. "Maisie, honey, who did this to you?" The little girl's chin trembled again. A single tear tracked down her cheek, cutting through the dust on her face. "Cameron," she said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. "But I can't tell. He said if I tell, he'll hurt Mama. He says nobody believes bad girls. He says I'm bad because I let him. But I didn't let him. I didn't. I tried to say no, but he's so big, and I'm little and—" Her voice broke. The stuffed rabbit fell from her hands as she started to cry, not loud wailing like kids do when they fall and scrape their knees, but quiet, hiccuping sobs that somehow hurt worse to hear. Bull looked up at his brothers, and in that moment, they all understood. This wasn't about their code, or their club, or their reputation. This was about a child who'd walked 2 miles on bare feet looking for help because everyone else had failed her. "Maisie," Bull said carefully, "this Cameron. Does he have a last name?" She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Blake. Deputy Cameron Blake. He has a badge and a gun, and Mama says he's a good man who takes care of us. But he's not good. He's not." The name hit Bull